Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Snipes, and today we're going to be doing another How to Play an Operator. Now, How to Play an Operator is a series that I started with Hibana, and I plan to carry out with all of the operators. Also, if they end up getting any big changes or nerfs or buffs, I'm going to probably end up leaving an annotation or a comment on that video. So like something like how to play Pulse or how to play Hibana. They've gotten a couple nerfs and buffs since those videos have come out, but I usually will try to put a comment or something, or if someone asks a question, I make sure to like pin the comment so that way you guys can see it. But if there's something, if there's a problem or anything like that, it'll be in the comments down below. Anyways, this series is how to play an operator within a team environment and kind of how to play with your team and the role that you fill on that team. There are different roles on different teams and kind of different operators will play differently into those roles. So it's really useful, but it doesn't work like Overwatch where there's set specific roles. I feel like some of these operators can kind of go in between. So it could differ a little bit depending on your play style. Now, these views are subjective to what I've seen on Pro League, Challenger League, Go Force, how I play and how I've seen others play. Usually play in high plats, and I usually watch a lot of Pro League and stuff like that. So I think I have a good idea for how this actually works. But as I said earlier, remember that different regions have different play styles and that individual players has personal preferences. But this is overall how I believe that you should play the operator. Anyways, let's start off with how to play Ying. Now, Ying comes from Year 2 Season 3 Operation Blood Orchid as part of the Hong Kong Special Duties Unit. She is one of 3 characters that we got during Blood Orchid, and we actually got Legion, who is her pair, the person she's paired with, and we actually got Ella, which was the start of the Polish operators. Now, she came at a very interesting time. We never really had a character like her. She has these little tiny balls that she can throw into rooms, and it completely flashes. Now, she has a little bit of controversy in if people think that this is an okay gadget to have inside the game, but when she first came out, Pro League was an absolute mess. Between Glass getting a buff and her coming in, it was almost impossible to guard sites. And I feel like maybe now she's a little bit more balanced with everything in the meta, but I still feel like she's very, very strong character. And you guys will probably see this through the gameplay that I put in the background of this video, or like what you're watching while you're listening to me talk. But I think that her gadget has absolutely shifted how a lot of people play. Shifts how I play her in general, because there's so many different ways that you can use her gadget. One of the more interesting ways is you can actually put it onto a window, a barricade that is closed, and have it kind of go in like a fuse charge would, where it kind of shoots in one at a time and then all goes off at the same time. There also is a timer delay on each one, and so the longer you hold it, the longer the delay is from when you throw it in the room. And this can be really helpful if you're trying to like roll it under a doorway or something like that. And you can actually roll it under barricades, which I actually learned recently. I didn't even realize that, but you can actually roll it. So if you want to kind of hold it longer to get a bit of a time delay, you can do this so that way you can get it a little bit farther into a room. And it usually, if you're throwing it, as long whatever it bounces off of, or if you just bounces on the ground and keeps going, it'll roll in a straight line. It doesn't usually bounce off and kind of pinball around. Also, another thing you guys should know, when you roll it on the floor, or if it kind of goes off on the floor and not on a barricade, it actually goes into a star pattern. It'll have 5 flashes that go in kind of the corners of the star, the points of the star, and then 1 in the center of that star. So if you're trying to use her gadget, maybe think about how this gets implemented, and maybe think about where you want to throw this and how this will actually work. And it can actually flash you at up to 10 meters, but let's say if you're around 9 meters, 10 meters away, it's not a full white screen. It's not a full ear-ringing kind of sound. It'll actually end up being a little bit more hazy, and you can actually kind of see, but it's kind of like if you get flashbang and you turn away at like the last second and you can't really see too much, but you can see just enough to maybe get your kill or maybe get her when she's running in. This can be detrimental if you think that you flash someone, because there's no sort of indication against someone else that you flashed them either 1 meter away or 10 meters away. But if it's point blank, you'll stay flashed up to 3 seconds, and you'll actually be completely white screened for like 2.5 seconds. And lastly, before I kind of talk about what her gadget's counters are, this will kind of lead into it. If you are anyone, it doesn't matter who you are, if you see her Ying Candela fly in, or you see it rolling on the ground, try to shoot it, because if you shoot it, that's going to destroy it. It won't go off. But if she doesn't cook it at all and it just throws it in, you might not even have a chance to. But that goes with it, kind of like a fuse charge. So you put it on a barricade or something, you can actually just shoot it and it'll stop going off. If you don't shoot it, you're going to be flashed and you're kind of risking a lot. But if you're already in a corner that you're probably going to die in, try just shooting it, because you have nothing to lose at that point. Also, another counter to her that I feel like is really her only counter besides maybe a bandited wall or something like that that's electrified is her Jaeger. If you try throwing it in a room with an ADS device, it's going to zap it and you won't be able to use your Ying, and that's a lot of gadgetry off the board. I mean, Ying's candelas are super useful for sight pushes, but if you can keep them, you can even throw them into the windowsill, and I'll show this here that you can throw it into a windowsill and kind of get rid of an ADS without having to completely lose your Ying. You'll lose some of the flashes, but you won't lose your Ying. So you can throw that, and then you can maybe throw another one in to follow it up as long as you don't have a second ADS in there. Now we're going to move on to the loadout, and I'm just going to kind of go over the guns that she has really quickly and kind of the loadout that I usually use for either of them. So she actually has two primaries that you can choose from. It's a T95 LSW. It is a light machine gun. It's considered a light machine gun, but it kind of has the recoil of an assault rifle, but it really is a light machine gun. It's a really heavy mag, and it's a really good gun. It shoots like a laser. It doesn't have a very high rate of fire, which can be harmful if you're one of those people that rely on that kind of stuff to get headshots, but if you're pretty accurate regardless, it'll do a lot of damage, and it'll do pretty much the job that you need to do. Also, she has a 612 shotgun. Now, this is a semi-automatic shotgun, and it actually has a drum magazine, so it actually holds a lot of shots that you can use to get rid of people on the other team. And it's really useful more so when you're trying to rush into a site. So if you're gonna jump into Oregon, you're gonna jump up into the kids' dorms, you kind of Ying in first and then you jump in. It's really useful to kill people quickly, but you don't have any sort of the distance that you would have with the T95. So it is kind of site specific which gun you pick or kind of how your playstyle is, but I think that is very useful when you have the T95 as a very kind of overall pick versus a 612. I feel like you kind of have to understand the situations that you're putting yourself into. Next, she has one single pistol, and it's a Q929, and I really think that this pistol's pretty good. Doesn't have a lot of recoil, doesn't do too much damage, but it's definitely a good balance of damage and recoil, so you can usually do pretty well with it if you end up having to use a 612 and you use a handgun as a long-range sort of gun. But I do really like her pistol a lot. I like her and Legion's pistol a ton, and I really like using it a lot. Next, her gadgets, you have the choices between a breach charge and a claymore. So it's gonna come down to how you play her. I use both. It depends on how I'm going to play a site, but if I'm going to maybe hot breach or maybe I'm going to play above, I'm usually going to bring those breach charges. It helps the team out a lot, it helps me out a lot, and you can also throw gadgets. You can throw your candelas in between the roof or anything like that, and it really is helpful to have a breach charge when your other teammates don't bring them. But if you're going to play more of a support role and say you're going to assist the plant and you're going to throw those Yings maybe later on in the round and you're going to be there to cover, so to speak, you're going to want to use your Claymore. Your Claymore can actually block out doorways, block windows, and block runouts in general that are probably going to happen to your team if you're not paying attention. You can only watch one way. You can't watch every single doorway. That's obviously impossible. So having a claymore is really useful for kind of putting it in your doorway and kind of being able to watch and make sure that you don't get flanked by someone that you didn't know was there unless they shoot your claymore, and then you can kind of turn to that. So one of the things that I really want to go over and kind of the beginning of the tips and tricks for this video is kind of how to hot breach with Ying. I'm going to be showing on kids' dorms. I know I've been talking about it this whole video, but kind of how I do it and kind of how you guys will see me do it. Usually I will set up a breach charge first, and then as soon as that I can do that, I will make sure to throw a Ying either through that window first, or I'll have it placed on that window, so that way I can get rid of any ADSs that might have zapped my gadget. But with this one, I put it on the window first, and then I decided to go through and try to get my shotgun kills. Again, this is a great example of where her shotgun really comes in handy, and it just shows how fast a rush can actually happen onto a site. And another thing that I want to show you guys is pretty much when you're using Ying and you actually figure out that you can kind of sort of get the timing down of her candelas finally, that's when you're going to really start excelling. You're going to be able to roll one in with that 3-second timer, and then you're going to be able to throw one even deeper, so that way you can actually get a good timing of where all the Yings go off at the same time. I'm going to kind of try to show you guys here, try to get it down to where I think it can happen, because it's pretty hard the first time, but once you use her a couple times, you kind of get a feel for everything. You start to get a lot easier, and it starts to get a lot easier with everything. Okay, and lastly, this isn't, I don't know what you'd call this. This isn't a trick at all. This is definitely just a tip for when you play Ying. Let your teammates know when you're going to throw your candelas, because if your teammates decide to run in, or if they want to go plant or anything like that while you're in the middle of throwing your candelas down, they will not be able to see. They'll be just as blind as the enemy you're trying to chase down, and that's really not good, because you do not want your teammates to be put out of the fight, because then it ends up becoming a 1v1 instead of maybe having a leveraged amount of like a 2v1 or a 3v1 against a person that you're trying to chase down. But you're the only person who can't be flashed by the candelas, and even if someone throws a flashbang at you, that doesn't work. You will still get flashed by a flashbang, but not a candela. I think that this is probably just a balancing thing, even though it probably doesn't make the most sense, and if it's realistic, it doesn't really make the most sense, but it's definitely a balancing thing. But if you guys are going to throw candelas onto a site, make sure you let your teammates know, or just kind of throw them really far to where your teammates won't get affected by it, because you really don't want your teammates to not be able to see. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video wasn't too long for you guys. I hope you guys learned something. Also, I hope you guys go play Ying. I really enjoy playing Ying. I think she's really, really strong right now in the current meta, and I really hope that she doesn't get any buffs, because she's just so strong. But I also, let me know down in the comments below if I missed any tips or tricks that you guys use when you play Ying, because I know I have some people in my comments that play a lot of different characters that I go over, and they have a lot of different comments and stuff like that that they can help you with, and also make sure to read their comments too. I'll pin any if I find any good ones. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. This is going to be Josh Snipes signing off.
Was there on there? Alright, I'll watch it, Josh.
Darb, let him come in. Darb,
Oh,
Darb, let him come in. Let him come in. Let him come in. Let him defuse.
It's not gonna work. Just get the rappel ready. He's in cigar. He's in freezer. In freezer. In freezer.
He's gonna jump right over. He's gonna jump on top of Darb. Oh wait, he's okay.
Let him defuse.
Josh,
Wait,
ready?
wait, he doesn't see it.
Friendly mission successful.